5 famous sauces, like ketchup and soy sauce, began life as kitchen mistakes. In this video, we trace the accidental origins of Worcestershire sauce and oyster sauce and how those blunders found their flavor. We'll also explore other iconic foods born from mishaps. Think chocolate chip cookies, potato chips, yogurt, and even champagne and tart tatin. Get ready to taste the stories behind these inventions that turned a mistake into culinary legends. 1. Worcestershire sauce. The forgotten cellar miracle. Picture this scenario. 2 Victorian-era chemists from Worcester, England, stashing away what they thought was a complete culinary disaster, only to discover years later they had accidentally created liquid gold. When John Lee and William Perrins rediscovered their forgotten mixture a couple years later while attempting to clear out some space, the mixture had fermented and completely transformed in flavor. Thus, Lee and Perrins' Worcestershire sauce was first sold to the public in 1837. In the early 1800s, a man by the name of Lord Sandys appointed chemists John Lee and William Perrins to the task of recreating a recipe he had tasted in Bengal. Lee and Perrins attempted the sauce, but did not like the result, so they left the sauce in jars in a cellar. 2 years later, the two stumbled across the sauce, decided to taste it and found something amazing. It actually tasted good. The anchovy and tamarind blend that had disgusted them initially had transformed into that complex, umami-rich sauce we can't live without today. 2. Oyster sauce. When forgetting actually pays off, the story of how oyster sauce accidentally came to be is a little unique in that we know exactly who to thank for this flavorful sauce, and that's Lee Kum-shung. Lee was the proprietor and chef at a small food stall in Guangdong. Either way, Lee was making an oyster soup on one day in 1888 when unspecified events took him away from the stove. By the time he got back, he realized the pot had been boiling the whole time he was gone, and the liquid had turned dark, thick, and full of the incredible flavor that we rely on today. What started as a simple oyster soup became the backbone of countless Asian dishes. Lee's accidental overcooking created that glossy, savory sauce that transforms everything from beef and broccoli to simple vegetables into restaurant-quality meals. The irony? His moment of forgetfulness launched what would become the Lee Kum-ki Empire, still dominating oyster sauce production worldwide. 3. Ketchup. From fish sauce to French fry companion, the precursor to our ketchup was a fermented fish sauce from southern China. As far back as 300 BC, texts began documenting the use of fermented pastes made from fish entrails, meat byproducts and soybeans. The fish sauce, called Ketchup, or Ketchup, by speakers of the southern Min dialect, was easy to store on long ocean voyages. The paste spread along trade routes to Indonesia and the Philippines, where British traders developed a taste for the salty condiment by the early 1700s. They took samples home and promptly corrupted the original recipe. The transformation from Asian fish sauce to tomato ketchup happened through pure culinary trial and error. British cooks, lacking the original fermented fish, started experimenting with whatever they had on hand: mushrooms, walnuts, even oysters. Finally, in 1812, the first recipe for tomato-based ketchup debuted. James Mees, a Philadelphia scientist, is credited with developing the recipe. He wrote that the choicest ketchup came from love apples, as tomatoes were then called. What began as an attempt to recreate an exotic Asian sauce became America's most beloved condiment. 4. Soy sauce. The ancient accident that changed everything. It's said that the roots of soy sauce can be traced back to a sauce called jan in ancient China. That began from pickling raw materials in salt to preserve them, and there were varieties based on fruit, vegetables, and seaweed, etc., on meat and fish, on meat only, and on grains. The transition from preservation method to flavor enhancer happened accidentally when ancient Chinese discovered that fermentation created something far more delicious than they had intended. It is said that while he was teaching that miso-making method to the villagers of Kishu Yuasa, he noticed that the liquid that seeps out of hishio tasted really good, and that became what is now known as tamari soy sauce. This byproduct liquid, originally just drainage from fermented soybean paste, became the foundation for what would eventually become one of the world's most essential cooking ingredients. The monks and villagers had stumbled upon what would become the cornerstone of East Asian cuisine, simply by paying attention to what they had previously considered waste. 5. Chocolate chip cookies. Ruth's sweet mistake. The owner of a popular Massachusetts restaurant called the Toll House Inn, a woman named Ruth Wakefield, is credited with inventing the cookie in the 1930s. But the beloved recipe's creation is owed entirely to an accidental discovery in 1938 by Ruth Wakefield, co-owner of the Toll House Inn. Wakefield was baking a batch of chocolate cookies when she ran out of baker's chocolate. As a substitute, she broke a bar of Nestlé semi-sweet chocolate into small pieces, expecting them to melt and blend into the dough. Instead, the chocolate pieces retained their shape, softening but not fully melting. The result was a delightful new kind of cookie with chunks of gooey chocolate embedded in a buttery, crispy base. Ruth's physics miscalculation became America's favorite cookie. She genuinely believed those chocolate chunks would melt completely and create uniform chocolate cookies. When they didn't, she could have thrown out the batch and started over. Instead, she served them to her guests, who went absolutely wild for these chunky, imperfect treats. Nestlé eventually bought her recipe and put it right on their chocolate chip bags, where it still lives today. 6. Potato chips. The revenge of an angry chef. In 1853, as legend has it, a customer at a hotel called Moon's Lake House in the resort town of Saratoga Springs, New York, complained that his fried potatoes weren't crispy enough and sent them back to the kitchen. The frustrated chef, George Crumb, decided to slice the potatoes as thin as humanly possible and fry them, and the result was a massive success. For decades after their invention, potato chips were actually called Saratoga chips. Chef George Crumb was basically having the 1850s equivalent of a bad day at work. This picky customer kept sending back his French fries, complaining they were too thick and soggy. So Crumb, in what was probably meant as culinary sarcasm, sliced those potatoes paper thin and fried them to a crisp. His "take that" moment backfired spectacularly when the customer loved them, and word spread like wildfire throughout the resort town. 7. Yogurt. When milk goes right instead of wrong. Yogurt's roots run super deep, dating back thousands of years ago, likely in Central Asia or the Middle East. Ancient herders used animal stomachs as containers to store and transport milk, and because of the natural enzymes present in the animal's stomachs, coupled with the warm climate, the milk would ferment, turning into a tangy, thick substance yogurt. History says that Central Asian herdsmen stored their extra goat's milk in containers made from animal stomachs, a handy way to pack a lunch. Some of the herdsmen were surprised when they opened the containers to find the milk that thickened and grown tart. When the milk was in the stomach bags, good bacteria bloomed, thus leading to the accidental invention of yogurt. Those herdsmen probably expected to find regular milk for drinking, but instead discovered this tangy, creamy stuff that not only tasted good but lasted much longer than fresh milk. Their storage solution accidentally became a preservation and fermentation method. 8. Nashville hot chicken. Love gone spicy. Yes, the hottest trend in fried chicken happened completely by mistake. It was introduced at the legendary Prince's Hot Chicken Shack in the 1930s, after, as legend has it, one of owner Thornton Prince's girlfriends suspected that he was cheating on her, so she fed him fried chicken that she doused with spicy oil as punishment. Turns out that he enjoyed it so much that he added it to his menu. This is probably the only time in culinary history where relationship drama directly created a food trend. Thornton Prince's girlfriend was trying to teach him a painful lesson about fidelity by making his fried chicken brutally hot. Instead of suffering through it, Prince loved the heat and thought other people would too. That vengeful girlfriend unknowingly launched what would become Nashville's signature dish and inspire countless hot chicken joints across America. Sometimes the best revenge is accidentally creating something amazing. 9. Champagne. When wine gets fizzy by accident. The winemakers who first created champagne were just trying to make plain old white wine. The carbon dioxide bubbles were an unintended side effect of an unwanted secondary fermentation caused by, among other factors, the region's colder climate. Those French winemakers in the Champagne region were probably pretty frustrated when their wine kept developing bubbles during the colder months. What they thought was a flaw in their winemaking process turned out to be the most celebrated accident in beverage history. The cooler temperatures in their cellars were causing a secondary fermentation that trapped carbon dioxide in the bottles, creating those signature bubbles. Instead of figuring out how to stop it, they eventually embraced it, refined the process, and created the drink that now symbolizes celebration, luxury, and special occasions worldwide. 10. Tarte Tatin. The upside-down dessert masterpiece. The legend goes that Tarte Tatin was created by sisters Caroline and Stephanie Tatin, who were in charge of a French hotel at the turn of the 20th century. It's said that Stephanie, the chef of the two, was distracted and caramelized some apples more than she meant to. Fearing they were burnt, and in order to avoid throwing them away, it's believed she decided to put dough on top of them and turn them over before serving. Stephanie Tatin was having one of those kitchen moments we can all relate to. She got distracted and overcooked her apples. Instead of starting over or serving burnt fruit to her guests, she improvised. Her quick thinking created what many consider the perfect apple dessert: deeply caramelized apples with flaky pastry, all presented in an elegant upside-down presentation. That moment of panic and creativity gave us a dessert that's now served in French restaurants worldwide.